Okay, so here we go. Property, unit, device. These three words tie together, and in this video, let me show you how. So a property is an attribute, or maybe you could say a characteristic. Basically, it's something about something. Like one of my attributes is that I'm 6 feet tall. Another one of my characteristics is that I weigh 200 pounds. Um, so in science, we look at different properties. Let's talk about mass. What mass is the amount of matter in something. So if we want to talk about the property of mass, then we need to have a unit. And in science, the unit of mass is the gram. Okay? And then if we want to measure grams, we need to have a device. And the device that we measure grams with is usually a scale or a balance. Let's look right here. If you just Google scale or balance, you see these things. You can have them just like a seesaw type balance or scale, and you can have electronic ones or the kinds that you see in doctors' offices. So I want to talk about a few different properties, their units, and the devices. There's many different scientific devices, and on this mastery quiz, I only threw in one question that could ask you about weird ones, but most of the questions will be about a few big properties. Mass is one of them. Another property is length. And length can be thought of as a distance. How long a desk is, something like that. So if you want to measure that property, the metric unit that we use is the meter. Okay, and if you can see this quiz, then you've already passed probably the metric quiz. Anyway, what device do we use to measure that unit of meters? Well, the most common one you'll find in a high school is the meter stick. We can use other devices that measure distance that involve lasers and mirrors and stuff like that, but meter stick works for us. Another property is volume. And volume is, I'm going to say volume is 3D size. In other words, the volume is the amount of space taken up by something. So you could have a box that has 3 dimensions. So how do we measure volume? Well, we measure volume with a unit called the liter. Now, just without trying to sound tricky or anything, a liter is actually a box, kind of like this one, that is 10 centimeters on a side. So technically, you could say that we can measure volume in, cubic meters or cubic decimeters and so forth. But officially, to measure volume, we're going to use the liter. Okay. So how do we measure volumes? How would we measure a liter or a milliliter? What we would probably use in our high school setting would be something called a graduated cylinder. And what does that look like? Graduated cylinders look like these things. You've probably seen them before. Right here, this picture is particularly interesting because it shows that the water kind of creeps up the side of the glass because water and glass are slightly attracted to each other. So when you're reading a graduated cylinder, you always try to read it at the lowest spot. That's called the meniscus. But I guess that's a topic for a different video. Another property is time, or you could say duration. How long something takes, that's a property of something. And so the unit that we use in the metric system there is the second. Okay, and how do we measure seconds? Probably in this class you might use your cell phone or maybe a stopwatch. I think that covers it for us for duration or time. I think on this quiz I also possibly threw in how would we measure brightness? And what does brightness mean? I'm not talking about intelligence here. I'm talking about how much light something gives off. And if you want to, like if you buy a light bulb, sometimes on the side of the box when you buy a light bulb, it will tell you how many lumens that light bulb gives off. Or another word that you might see is lux. For my quizzes, it's all that really matters. If you recognize the first couple letters there, you'll get the big picture. So brightness, how can we measure brightness? Well, once again, I mean, today's cell phones are so awesome. You can get an app that will measure brightness because it uses the camera on your phone. But there's a little device called a light meter of some sort. So let's see here. And what are we looking at there? I just Googled light meter, and here's what some of them look like. So these are probably really nice ones that you would use, you know, if you were a photographer or something. So that's it. That's the big picture. What we've got then is we've got some kind of a characteristic, or we'll use the word property, and we'll have some sort of a unit that it's measured in, and we'll have some sort of a device. So before I hit 7 minutes here, let me encourage you to go into Moodle, and inside the measurement unit I put a sheet called Measurement Info Sheet, and it looks just like this, except there's a lot more stuff on it. I put a few more words on there. Alright, so there you go.